Appalachian applies pressure. Maye gets out of it and flips it ahead for the first down. What a special play by Maye as he just shoveled.
Play clock just about got to zero. Penix gets the snap off, takes the shot. He's got it.
Welcome in, Falcons fan. It's your boy Bryce Lewis back at it again for more Atlanta Falcons content. And today we're doing part 2 of the Falcons QB search. We're going to talk about the rookie quarterbacks. I'll point out 4 guys that I think could potentially be good fits for this team. I'd love to hear you guys' thoughts down in the comments. And also, if you like this video, don't forget to subscribe and like the video, man. Go ahead so I can, keeps me going and it makes me know that you guys like the content and I should go ahead and keep going with this type of content. So appreciate any love that you guys can give me. But like I said, we're going to talk about potential options for the Falcons quarterback. Let's just dive right into it right now. The first quarterback is the guy who is considered the consensus #1 in this year's draft, Caleb Williams, a guy who at USC won a Heisman Trophy. This past year wasn't the best year for the team in general and for him, but there were still some good takeaways you could take from that. A guy who we know, great arm strength, can play off script. His athleticism is amazing. He's taken it to the house on multiple occasions, can scramble. A guy who a lot of people look at maybe in this draft as the generational prospect, as the guy who is a sure thing. Even though no one's a sure thing, people think maybe he's the closest thing to that. I've watched some USC games. He's definitely done some amazing things. I've seen Pac-12 after dark, and the shootouts he's been in the Pac-12, especially that one game against Arizona where he kept firing back against them and in a duel there. A guy who, I think he's a leader. He's mature. He started at OU, transferred to USC, and has been able to continue with the production that he's been able to have. One of the big things, or I guess some of the concerns I have for him clearly is, he doesn't have the prototypical NFL size. He's 6'1", he's not the heaviest guy in the world. Like in terms of like just size and things like that. Obviously, you can get to the league, you can bulk up. You expect him to do that. You expect him to get his body more prepared for the NFL game. So maybe that's not an issue. I mean, height you can't change, but you can change, your body type. But obviously, you don't want that to take away from his athleticism and things of that nature. He's also a guy who, from stuff I've read and things that I've seen, is that with being an off-script quarterback sometimes comes, okay, well, if you're off-script, do you make more negative off-script plays or positive off-script plays? During his Heisman year, there was a lot more positive off-script plays. During this past year, there was a lot more negative off-script plays. Now, there were still great off-script plays with that, and obviously in today's, league, you need a quarterback who could sometimes, when stuff breaks down, still make a play, but you don't want it to result in mistakes. One thing about Patrick Mahomes that I think he really does really, really well, since he's people's comp for him, for some people, is that he can go off script, but he never seems to make the big mistake. And that's why Patrick Mahomes is consistently one of the best, not the best quarterback in the game year after year, especially after just winning a Super Bowl back-to-back years now. Caleb, is a guy who, like I said, his Heisman year, you saw a lot of those plays where he had to when it broke down, he had to make a play out of nothing, and he did. Like I said, this past year, USC's offensive line was one of the worst in the nations. So it made it much more difficult for him, especially, to always be on track or never make a mistake. If you're under constant pressure, that can be hard. But he did make plays with that, which could also be looked at as a plus. He was under a lot of pressure. He was still able to make plays. He was still able to score points. And that's something that obviously is, you never know what situation you're going to land in when you get to the league, and being able to operate under duress and operate with pressure in your face is important, and that's going to be the biggest thing. Now, some of the issues that he may have also is sometimes he has had some fumbles in college, needs to be better with ball security, especially for a guy with his frame. Carrying it loosely and you're not that big of a guy could also potentially rise the risk of injuries for him. And that's something that, you had concerns about with Lamar when he came out, because Lamar was skinny. You have concerns about, guys coming out. Bryce Young, another example, of just like they're not big guys. And so if they have a play style that involves them running around and potentially putting themselves in harm's way, you always are worried. Caleb does have a very He played more physical, especially when he ran the football in college. Obviously, in the pros, they're going to want him to slide down more. They're going to want him to get down more and not create any type of extra hits that are unneeded on him. Again, because of, like I said, his frame. But overall, when Caleb is on track and, if he has a clean pocket, et cetera, Caleb Williams is one of the best slingers out there. And that's why so many people are high on him in this draft. But there was an interesting evaluation from Merrill Hodge, and I want y'all to take a listen to that.
Oh, I've only watched Caleb Williams 3 games last year, 3 this year, so I'm only halfway done, okay? The one thing that is clear, he is not special. He is not something unique like a Patrick Mahomes, and I hope the Bears don't think, well, let's try to make up for our mistake when we pass up Patrick Mahomes and go get the Patrick Mahomes. The kid is not Patrick Mahomes. Ain't even remotely close to that.
So Hodge is a guy who said C.J. Stroud was the best quarterback in the draft. He was right. He was a guy who, I can't remember off the top of my head who. He said someone was going to be a bust, and I can't remember who he said was going to be a bust. But he's a guy who also, in that same video, was talking about Justin Fields. It feels like there's things that affected, his play. Obviously, having 3 coordinators, things of that nature, was not effective. Johnny Manziel. That's who he said wasn't going to work in the league, and he was right. And there's been other quarterbacks that he's evaluated that I don't know off the top of my head that he's been right about. Now, obviously, he's not right about every quarterback. No one's ever 100%. But those are a couple of notable guys that he was right about. And so some people, when they heard that evaluation, kind of were like, okay, he may have a point there. He may, have something there. The fact that he did not call Caleb special. The fact that he thinks he's not even close to Mahomes. And the thing is that we have to be careful with these player comparisons. We always like to say a player is Mahomes, a player is this, a player is that. And the thing about it is that you're saying that he's going to be one of the greatest quarterbacks of all time. And we don't know that. He may just be a really good franchise quarterback, and he's not Mahomes. So you got to be careful with those player comps. But Caleb's a guy, like I said, in Atlanta's system, I think could thrive. I think he could have a great year. The biggest things for him, like I said, is going to be turnovers. Hopefully not having a lot of negative plays. You're not playing Arizona State. Everybody can run with you. Everybody's smart. The schemes are more complex, so you're going to have to be able to adapt. Some people would say Lincoln Riley's offense at USC was maybe a more simplistic offense. A lot of one-read concepts is what you get a lot in college. They say a lot of guys doing one read, and then they make a decision. Either they run or they can sometimes go through the progression depending, but maybe not consistently. And then obviously that can affect mechanics, and that can, all that things, and that can result in mistakes happening from that. So that would be the biggest thing for him, is that he's a guy who his biggest issues could just be turnovers in his first year, which obviously the Falcons having Desmond Ridder last year and his turnover issues, that may bring back some nightmares for people. But if he doesn't turn the ball over, he's a guy who definitely can go out and get you 30 touchdowns, I think, in his first year. Depending again on the offense and what they're doing. Now, the Falcons obviously have a really good running game, so we'll see. It'll be interesting to see what the ratio of the offense is. Are they going to be pass heavy? Are they going to be run heavy? Are they going to be balanced? But I think Caleb Williams, like I said, he's the number one overall consensus guy in this draft. And obviously, if the Falcons are able to trade up and get him in the draft, I mean, obviously, you want that pick to land, and you have to feel confident that Caleb will be successful and be the franchise quarterback you expect at the next level. So, next guy that I want to get into, Drake Maye from North Carolina, a guy who, again, like Caleb, didn't have the greatest last year. His 2022 year was better than his 2023 year. And the thing with him is, when I watch Drake Maye, and I've talked to people, and I've read scouting reports, a lot of people are like either really high on him and think he's can't miss and think he's 1B to Caleb Williams, or they're not high on him. They're not enthused with him. He doesn't move them. It's interesting a little bit. Some people, I have a friend works in the sports business. He was a UNC fan. He's also a Commanders fan. They just had Sam Howell that came from UNC to the Commanders. And he was like, he kind of gives me Sam Howell vibes. If people forget, Sam Howell before his last year of college was also considered a first-round pick before he had that bad last year, and then he dropped to the third. So I think for some people, they're a little concerned that is Drake Maye legitimate? One of Drake Maye's biggest issues, and Caleb also had this issue too, is that they're both kind of risk takers. And so obviously when you have a quarterback, like when you get to the next level, it's coachable. It's something that you obviously are like, hey, you don't have to take these chances. You don't have to take these risks. Drake Maye has a very live arm. That's one thing you'll hear people talk about a lot with him, his arm. His arm strength is very live. He also has really good athleticism. And he fits the prototypical quarterback frame. So a lot of people are already just in love with the measurables with him too, with the arm talent. People say he may have the best arm talent in this draft for some people. And so, for Drake, the biggest thing for him is just lower the risks, reading through progressions like most quarterbacks, and just, not making, like I said, the big mistake, not making the unnecessary throw. Because like I said, there were a couple of times, if you watch Drake Maye last year, where you'll sit there and be like, why did he make that decision? He'll make questionable decisions from time to time. So you will sit back and reflect and be like, what are we doing here? You know what I'm saying? So I think Drake Maye, again, depending on where you view him, potentially will go 2 in this draft. Commanders at 2 right now. Falcons could trade up to 2, right? Again, I think he could work with Robinson in the offense. Again, you have running game, you have Drake London, you have talent there. It's just a matter of, do you believe that he will work in Atlanta and that what they want he can provide? Like I said, you'll hear people debating it all the way up to the draft, Drake Maye or Caleb Williams. And for good reason. Like I said, they're both really talented players, really good players on both ends. For both of them. A guy who you just watch him, like I said, really, really, really good. Just thrower of the football, like I said. And like I said, a lot of his issues are coachable. A lot of Caleb's issues are coachable. And, you can see with the quarterback model and the staff model that Raheem Morris has developed in Atlanta, quarterback coach, which you didn't have last year, offensive coordinator, and you also have a pass game concepts guy. You have 3 guys who can work with him and help him, learn how to maybe deal with pressure a little bit better. Because, every quarterback, they always say the biggest thing is that when pressure comes in their face, mechanics break down, which can lead to overthrows, the equilibrium of the body, the arm and the bottom of the top not being equal when making throws, because it's like you're trying to rush the football out of your hands. Luckily, he does have enough arm strength that he, is going to be one of those guys who may not have the best fundamentals, but has the arm talent. But also the issue with that is some people even say he gives some Josh Allen off because he's a guy, because he knows he has that type of arm talent, he'll sometimes throw the ball in risky windows because he believes that he can fit it in there. Because that's always the big thing about quarterbacks who know they have that type of arm, is that they can think they can make every throw. You've seen it with Josh Allen. You've seen it with other guys in the past. And so with Drake, is the one thing you don't want him to do is force the ball, feel like that he has to, every chance he gets, well, I can make that throw because I don't want this to be like a dead down, or I have to throw it away or check it down. That can result in some interceptions. So big thing for him is learning patience in the pocket, going through his progressions, not, sometimes, making sure he's aware of what's going on around him and not going ahead and taking that unnecessary risk. If he can do that, Drake Maye could also be another potential great option for the Atlanta Falcons. Then we go to a guy who I think is the most popular name in Atlanta Falcons circles in terms of a rookie quarterback. Jayden Daniels from LSU. I don't know why I had that in my head. LSU Tigers, man. The Heisman Trophy winner from this past year. 50-plus touchdowns in the SEC. I mean, he had an absolutely fantastic year. And a guy who some people just think, especially, again, Robinson coming in, the offense that's expected to come in, they think he would thrive here. A guy who, like I said, I think a lot of people are really rooting for. Some people think he could go 3rd in the draft, so the Falcons may have to trade him 3rd to get him. Some think that he may drop to 8th. I've seen some draft scouting reports that don't even think he's a top 10 pick. Because the thing about Daniels is obviously, you could see, great runner. I mean, elite runner. I think they said he reportedly runs a 4.5. That's one thing about the three quarterbacks I've already mentioned. All of them can run. So you're going to have a mobile quarterback. But, his precision passing, he really took a jump this year. Kind of like Burrow did this last. If you think about Burrow and Jayden's rises at LSU, they had the year previous was like a decent year, a good year, but nothing special. And then their last year was the Heisman year. Now, obviously, Burrows ended up in a national championship, and the LSU team from this year wasn't that great, especially defensively. But Jayden shows a lot of good things on film that people think, can translate. And I think with him too, I think why there is so much all over the place with him is that people look at him and think to themselves, he could really be a top end quarterback at the next level. Can his game that he has played at LSU transfer to the next level? And then he can still remain that top guy, because like I said, you see so many good things from him. You see the elite running ability. A leader, 5 year. I think he played 5 years in college. A guy who's more mature, a guy who he's been through it. Started at Arizona State and then where he transferred to LSU. A guy who has really good decision making. I think. I maybe wouldn't call him an elite processor, but he has very good, strong decision making. A guy who plays the game kind of smooth. His mechanics are smooth. A guy who, like I said, can make a lot of big plays. And the big thing for him, realistically, is just, like I said, big thing they're always going to say with guys like him. Can he go through? Can he sit back there in the pocket and read the defense? And then if there's pressure to space, does his mechanics break down? If he can, what I'm saying? If he can still do that, because again, in college, you can kind of play like a video game where you could have something break down, but know you can outrun everybody and then still make a big play. NFL, everybody's just as quick as you. So now, okay, can you beat them with their mind? The biggest thing, that's why I said the biggest thing with Jayden is his translation to the next level. Can he mentally get where he needs to go to the next level? Because the physical tools are there. I think that's going to be his saving grace, is that the physical tools are there. I think he'd be a great fit in Atlanta, but it's about the mental. Plus, again, Jayden does have a sort of smaller frame as well, so you still have those issues that you maybe had with Caleb Williams. Caleb is built differently, but he's a shorter guy. Jayden is a little bit taller, but lankier. So big thing with him, again, with his running ability is, okay, is he going to put himself in harm's way? Is he going to put himself in a potential to get hurt? Is he going to put himself, is that going to create, because again, you don't want to draft a guy who may not be able to stay on the field. I think Jayden Daniels has all the potential in the world to be a top quarterback in this draft. There's a reason why a lot of people love this draft of quarterbacks for that exact reason, But then one question that you also could ask about him is, why did it take him till basically his last year of college, after being a starter for so many years, to finally maybe break through to that elite level as a college quarterback? Now, everybody grows differently, though. So you have to look at that. But at the same time, some people are wondering, is he really just a college quarterback who can play really well? Or is he a guy who can get to the next level and still maintain it? He definitely has that type of ability that I think be a big play guy, a big play quarterback. But I also think he has the ability to take you apart. If that's the offense they want to run here in Atlanta, he's a guy who I think could just kind of take you apart and move you down the field. I think he has that type of mind and that type of precision as a passer. It's just a matter of letting it all come together and then seeing if he can then get to that next part or the next point in the league for him. And again, one thing I love about the staff this year is that he's going to have plenty of coaching. He's going to have plenty of support. So they're going to give him every opportunity to be ready for week one. And, obviously we assume that that's who they're going to start, whoever they draft, but we don't know. They may have bring in a veteran and he may be able to wait for a year. And Jayden Daniels, it may be good for him to wait for a year. I would not be mad at all if they said, hey, Jayden, I want you to just, watch for years, see how the NFL goes, the effort, the preparation, the work ethic that you have to put into it. And then, the next year we think you may be ready. But at the same time, a guy who maybe could play his first year, So I mean, I've seen some people compare his release and how he plays to a bit of a C.J. Stroud even, which means C.J. Stroud was just a great quarterback for the Houston Texans. So people hear that, their eyes are going to pop and think, oh, yeah, he's legitimate. He definitely could be the guy. And so, like I said, he's the most popular guy also, I think, in a lot of Atlanta Falcons fan circles in terms of if we drafted a quarterback, that would be the guy we would want to go with in that situation. Like I said, he's also a Heisman Trophy winner, and he's coming off one of his best years. So this is a chance for him to kind of show that wasn't a fluke, and he really can be the real deal at the next level. And then lastly, we'll get into the fourth guy. Now, this guy is the guy that I would see them taking in the top 10. He's a guy who I could see them taking in the second round, third round, if they wanted, depending on how the offseason goes in a different direction. Michael Penix Jr. Guy who led Washington to the national championship this past year. Lost to Michigan. But a guy who really, really impressed a lot of people. Great throw of the football. Has a snap with his throw in the football. He really drives it down the field a lot, which could be a weakness and a strength. Good driver of the ball down the field, but in the NFL, not always going to have the deep shot. Sometimes he is passed up some regions. If you watch the national championship, there were multiple plays in that game where there were guys open underneath that he didn't take. He wanted to go for the big shot, but he also didn't have his best game. He missed some guys when they were open. So you wonder about some inconsistencies with footwork there and everything. But realistically for him, a guy who biggest thing for him is the medical. He had those ACLs. He had a bunch of injuries in college. What do NFL teams say about his medical? That every NFL team has their medical team, and they're all going to have different opinions. Some are not going to be frightened. Some are going to love it. Some are going to be like, I don't know. Because the one thing you worry about with a guy like him is like, okay, if he gets hurt, if he gets hit in the knee, is he done? Is his career over? Is it that situation? That's why he probably won't be a top 10 guy. But a guy at the same time who, if you took the day 2 or maybe even late first, that could work. Like I said, a guy who, like I said, plays really, really well. You know, really emerged at Washington. He's had good years at Washington. Like, this wasn't like now he's on the map. I just think that he came back from the injury, played at Washington, played well, but this year, since Washington was able to go further, they were like, okay, I see what we got here. I mean, and with him too, the difference between with him than the other quarterbacks to me is his mental. Because he's not a runner, he's having to do a lot of his winning in terms of the play with his mind in the pocket. And that may be an advantage that he could potentially have on the other guys. Not saying the other guys don't have good mental. They all have good mental. But I think that he definitely does a good job of pocket manipulation at times. He does a good job stepping, micro-stepping, navigation, to get lanes so he can throw a good ball. He has a good touch on his throws. A lot of his balls sometimes kind of do like an upward trajectory and down, and they land right in the spot it needs to. Obviously, Washington had 2 NFL wide receivers. That was really big to have 2 guys who can go after. Really good field vision and a high IQ passer. So, and even with his injuries, he can still move. He's not a scrambler. But he can move. And that's really, at the end of the day, what you want. And that's going to be really, really the good thing. And then also, this is an issue for certain people. He'll be 24 when if he started this year. And so some people were like, oh, he's older. He's almost 25. So it's like, okay, how what does that mean in terms of his longevity as a quarterback? Because basically out of the first rookie contract, he'll almost be 30. So you'll be like, okay, is he a guy that we want to invest into long-term, knowing he's about to hit his 30s, even though he'll be in his prime when it happens? Which most quarterbacks, you draft like 21, 22, that means by the end of that rookie deal, they'll be like 26, 27. So then you're having to look at maybe re-upping them at 30, 31. And then, where it's like the second contract will be to like 33. And now it's like, all right, are you on the downside of your career, things like that nature. That's obviously going to be the big thing with him that people are going to wonder about. And obviously also with him is that, when you get after him in the pocket, sometimes can be volatile and off-script situations. things of that nature. But I mean, he is a really good thrower of the football like that. Like, you just know he's a great driver of the football when you watch him. And I think that's why so many people were impressed with him this past year in Washington, is that you really could see the way he throws the football. It's like, why can't he play at this level? You know? And so he's a guy who, if the Falcons wanted to go down that route and not go top 10 quarterback, trade up for a guy, but maybe want to get someone in the second, I think he would be a solid pick there. And a guy that probably don't want to start his rookie year if you don't have to. Again, this will probably involve them maybe going after the veteran quarterback, but again, a guy who is really talented, really good, and like I said, a lot of confidence in what he can do and what he can become over time. So, you know, it really, with rookie quarterbacks, to wrap this up, it really just depends on who you like. What do you like in your quarterbacks? What are big deals to you? What are big negatives to you? You know, and when deciding all of that, you got to think about the team. The Falcons luckily have a great situation because you already know you have a running game. You have a number one receiver. You have a number one tight end. Offensive line could use some improvement, but you're not going into an offensive line where you expect to get sacked 60 times. So every quarterback has a great opportunity to come to Atlanta and be able to play. The question is, who fits what the Falcons want to do, who fits the philosophy the best, and who fits the concepts the best? Who's going to get them the best opportunity to be able to reach the potential of the offense? Because, like I said, a rookie quarterback, you have to go through some growth sometimes. They may not be able to, off the gate, light it up, but you might get lucky. You might be able to get the CJ Stroud of this year's draft, depending on who you like. So you guys let me know who you guys like down below. Do you like Williams? Do you like Maye? Do you like Daniels, or do you like Penix? If there's another quarterback that you think the Falcons should be considering, leave that down below. I'd love to hear you guys' feedback. And also, don't forget to check out my first video on the free agent trade options that I talked about and discussed for potential opportunities for the team to potentially go after this offseason, as well as they look to solidify that quarterback position, and as they look at that as one of the key positions they need to take the next step as a team. But that's all I got for you guys. It's your boy, Bryce Lewis. See you next time.